Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke. I'm so glad you're here. We are going to be doing another deep dive today into the wonderful wide world of functional mushrooms, of course, with Bill Chioffi representing Nammex. And we have done quite a few yet so far, and the series is getting really, really strong, and it's become very popular, mainly because of the fact that all of these different functional mushrooms, although they have many common things in between them, they all have very distinct different things. And I think it's important to be able to have a little bit of a schooling on each of them. And it doesn't matter if you've been in our industry for a long time. It doesn't matter if you're new to the industry, and it doesn't matter if you're not in the industry at all. It's all about making sure that you are learning, that you have tools and information to make wonderfully wise decisions about your health and well-being. You know, I've mentioned many times that for like 15 years, I did shows on mushrooms, and back then they used to fall on deaf ears. It just wasn't a category where people were really interested. And now today, it's an amazing category, and people are learning what people all over the world have known for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So I'm really glad that they're getting the focus that they deserve. Help me welcome my guest. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Jeff. What do you say?
Not much. How you doing? You've been traveling. I've been watching your travels. And are you back home now?
Yes, I am here in Roberts Creek in BC on the Sunshine Coast for a while until probably March when Expo West rolls around.
Yeah,
so
I'll be there.
Yeah, I have been to China since our last talk, and also went to visit my son in Mexico, where he lives and works for part of the year, and then took some vacation around Christmas time. And we were closed at Nammex. We had a shutdown for the whole week. And so, yeah, fantastic. Got some sun because it's about to be rather gray here through the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and I've enjoyed watching your travels as well, Jeff.
Yeah,
You've
lots
been on
of
the
them.
road a lot too.
I saw some fishing photos of you. Was that fun?
Oh yeah, that was with shameless plug for Los Locos, the company that my son Cam works for. Yeah, we went down, and for the last couple of years, I've gone down to hang out with him and go out marlin fishing in the Baja, and
Nice.
So he has transformed his career from a trout fly fishing guide, and he's quite well known in his field. And so that's the progression in that type of guiding, where you're going for bigger species and on learning more about different environments. And so it's very cool. And that company also makes that part of the fishing experience, is like teaching people about the migration of these fish and participating in tagging programs for conservation, because these deep water pelagic fish don't know too much about details. You would think that they do, but they know they follow bait balls around in the Pacific, and they know the same types of other large species are doing that. And so it was cool. We saw whales every day, and then
Nice.
in the part where I wasn't fishing, just enjoying being down in the Baja near Cabo. We saw, it was because they go into Magdalena Bay around there and calve. And so gray whales and humpback whales. And so I'm really fortunate to get to see them here in the Georgia Strait. But I mean, I've never seen so many. It was every day whales playing and sprouting and baby whales.
Nice.
And so magical to do that on time off. But we're talking about chaga, something quite different from the land.
We are. And, you know,
Yeah.
it's interesting, you know, as people think of mushrooms, obviously they think of a button mushroom. And in our mind, we visualize all mushrooms looking like that. And of course, we've been able to dispel that with all the different kinds of mushrooms. But chaga really kind of sets the sets the scale for different looking mushroom. I was up in Canada and I had actually seen them out in nature and years ago, and they're just very strikingly different where you think they could not be anything positive at all. So yeah, I'd love to talk about chaga. There's so many wonderful benefits to chaga, and let's talk chaga.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as you pointed out, when we start to use terminology, mushroom, meaning, there is a specific definition for mushroom. There's a mycological definition for it. And chaga is not defined as a mushroom. It's a sterile canker. It's a canker. But if we sold things as a canker, which is an evolution in the not an evolution in the mycological terminology, but in consumer awareness, to be able to read a label basically and understand it. I think the best way to refer to chaga is just as a chaga. That's how it's been referred to, is chaga. And in my discussions with Jeff Chilton about this, and Jeff and I and our scientific team here are co-authors on a paper that is a analytical chemistry comparative analysis of authentic chaga. So this is what a little chunk of chaga looks like, as a coming off a voucher specimen that is used for analysis. This is hard. It's hard piece of, looks like the birch wood that it comes off. And so chaga, Inonotus obliquus is how you would see the Latin binomial listed. But that refers to the pathogenic fungus that infects Betulaceae species, or birch species of trees primarily. And so this is a forest disease. So you could look it up in Forest Service manuals that'll list it as a fungal pathogen of birch trees. And in the birch tree forestry trade, birch harvested as a product from the forests, much of it, if it's used for furniture building or anything else, it's for veneer, which has to have a very smooth appearance. And if there is a big canker from a fungal pathogen sticking out of a piece of birch wood, it makes sections of that birch non-usable in terms of higher value wood products, so it gets pulped. And that pulp is used for paper. There's other polypores that grow off birch that would end up getting pulped into what gets eventually made into paper. So you have to think there's probably some fungal mycelium, and definitely compacted mycelated wood material. That's like, it's not really the wood. It's been transformed to some degree, but a chaga, interestingly, only has about 10% fungal mycelia in it. The rest of the material, and this is what we detail in our paper, are other constituents, and not wood, and not fungal material, but transformed type of woody type material that we call a chaga. And so enotadiol is one of these secondary metabolites or small molecules in chaga, where we can distinguish that other hard tree species like this, like even a hard woody polypore species like reishi, like the reishi mushrooms that you see here. Reishi does not have any enotadiol, nor do any of the other polypores. But if you saw that, you would indicate that, yeah, there's probably a chaga canker in your material. And that's a marker compound that is unique to this species that is added to a Nammex specification now. And for beta glucans, the very popular type of measurement in a fungal product or materials, quite low actually. 10% would be quite high for a chaga. And so this is something that I look at when I see chaga products with claiming to be 30, 40, 50% beta glucans. There's no way, because it's quite low in that type of polysaccharide. We noted in our study, and this is in the International Journal of Molecular Science, there are multiple compounds in chaga. We used 8 different methods, and that would be referred to as an orthogonal approach, meaning each separate method arrived at similar conclusions in terms of the chemical makeup of your material. So each one independently validates the other test. Normally, you could just do one DNA test and say, yes, we showed DNA fragments of Inonotus obliquus, and that would be an identity test. But we used high performance liquid chromatography. LC mass spec was used as well, and even very simple iodine starch testing to differentiate authentic chaga from Inonotus obliquus mycelia being grown on grain, but being referred to as chaga. Now, this is very important because in the beginning, remember I said, I think the best way to refer to this is a chaga, and that's how it would be referred to in traditional medicines, as a chaga. Canker. The preparation for this traditionally, which has been quite small amounts, probably that much ground up and boiled into a decoction, a very strong tea. And when you make chaga tea or boil it like that, which is how I prefer to consume chaga, is just if I can get a chaga and grind it up and then put it in a crock pot with some water, if there's enough of it, and just kind of let it slow cook. And it turns into a liquid that's quite dark, black, indeed, like coffee. So it's a great type of beneficial additive to coffee type products. It benefits those flavor notes and profiles really well for an authentic chaga. But when you start to have other products that are Inonotus obliquus myceliated grain, you don't have the flavor or sensory profile as you do in an authentic chaga. So some of the very most basic things that you can tell as to whether you've got authentic material or not in terms of what's traditionally been used, you can tell with your eyes, ears, nose, and in your ears even, that this is a hard piece of material here, right? You got to have you got to chop it up pretty small and put it in your coffee grinder. If you have like me, if you have a coffee grinder that's dedicated to herbal material instead of your nice coffee beans, which shout out to Chris Killam, who was on your show recently talking about that. Awesome. Chris is great.
He's a wonderful world traveler. I love
following.
Absolutely.
I love following him. Yeah. So yeah, chaga. What else can we say about it? It is a type of fungal pathogen that is, let's say, reliant on birch populations. So it's a boreal type forest. And if we talk about that type of forestry region, the circumference of the top parts of the northern hemisphere have vast amounts of boreal forest in Canada and Ontario, and then into Siberia and Finland. And so, yeah, there's some really interesting companies doing, that's the other thing about chaga, is that most of the authentic chaga that's out there, it is wild harvested. So as I told you, if you inoculate grain with Inonotus obliquus mycelia, you won't get pigment coloration. The melanin content is not there. That's one of the things that was very interesting in our chemical analysis, was that the outer layer of chaga that's darker here, the pigment that makes it darker, is actually a form of melanin, exactly the type of melanin that is in our skin cells that's protective against UV radiation. And so what happens with the growth of this thing is it will start, it gets bigger and bigger as the pathogen is infecting more of the tree material. And then it'll just, as you've seen it, if you've seen it growing out of a tree, it'll start to look like kind of even sometimes a little horn. It has various shapes, but, at the time of harvest, it would, let's say, average size would be like a big softball or something, like enough so that like you would have to take an axe and chop it off the tree. And so that's the other thing to think about, is that these things do get chopped off of birch trees. So it's attached in part of that wood. So at some point you have to separate the wood material that hasn't been, so that's something to look for in adulteration, is like, are there things in there? And honestly, like there's many different ways that you could check the authenticity of it. And so that's kind of, in our experience of 30 years of sourcing this type of material, we have a lot of data on those things, on the consistency of that very low beta glucan amount. And then as more methods get developed and reference chemical standards get developed by companies like inaudidiol being available as a pure chemical to see how much of this is in your material. That's where we spend a lot of our time in the scientific realm, is working with organizations like AOAC, the International Association of Official Analytical Chemists, who are developing standards right now. They're working on lion's mane because I think that's the most commercially the biggest species right now that requires methods. And so, we're working in that sphere. And then, there's common education too, like you do. Just for us at Nammex, we're a B2B ingredient supplier. So we're advising different brands that want to buy our material on everything from technical applications to, other questions. And most of them have their own marketing departments, but we like to help them with that whenever possible too. So I think Chaga is interesting, as you say. It's like I think it's still one of our top species for sure in terms of sales. Not a mushroom; it's a canker. It sometimes gets referred to as a sclerotia, which is not quite accurate for this, because a sclerotium is a hardened mass of mycelia, usually formed under the ground, and something that is not involved with compacted wood material. So this is a canker, is how they refer to it. If I had the book with me, I would use the Herbs of Commerce, which is a common reference guide that lists what the FDA anyway refers to for nomenclature when there's a labeling issue. And so for Chaga, I guess I would be curious to find out what kind of what questions you get asked about that when you're out there doing education about it. I know I have a bunch that I could queue up that we get asked about it, but curious from your perspective, Jeff, what do you hear?
I have a couple ready to go, but the first thing in my mind when you talk about the separation off of the tree, it just, in my mind, it's like a barnacle being taken off the bottom of like a ship.
It's a manifestation of the fungal disease in the tree. It's scar tissue basically that's being pushed out from the woody type material that starts to form that dark melanin layer on the outside to who knows what, protect it or whatever. But it's interesting. It can produce what's called a fruiting body that would produce spores that would release and reproduce this. But that doesn't seem to occur until the tree is dead. So you'd have to, it's quite difficult to find, first of all, in nature, a fruiting body. It occurs as like this slimy layer that's grayish colored. underneath the bark usually are in parts of the tree that are still alive, or sometimes under, so it's hard to identify. It doesn't kind of show itself. And so it's a fruiting body that's not a mushroom. That's an interesting point too, because it is referred to as that. Like that's how a mycologist would refer to that slimy layer that chaga would produce. And, another mysterious thing, and we were talking earlier about the mysterious reproduction of marlin, but like how that works. But like, that's another thing that like with all our scientific knowledge, we still are just getting PhD type dissertations on the reproduction of how this fungal pathogen actually spreads itself and when you can see it and why, and all these questions are being answered. So I'm just happy people are taking more functional mushroom products and turning towards healthier foods in general these days. So that's at the basic level, that makes me happy. But I also have been an herbalist in the supply chain for a long time, so I take that very seriously in terms of authenticity and looking at what traditional people in Siberia, Finland, Iceland, the northern tribes in North America have used this for, and how they've used it. And it's been boiled up as a hardened material and boiled up as a decoction.
Someone had asked me the other day, they said in nature, a lot of animals and insects feed on the spores and mushrooms and things like that. And it was funny, last week I was talking to somebody and they said, with chaga being so dense, are animals even able to feed on it? And I was thinking, I don't think so.
I mean, they can rot. They can get things that will make them rot, like other microbial, let's say, things can deteriorate one. And if the tree health is gone down so much and the trees start to have no more viable living ligninous material in the tree itself for this to continue to consume as a food source, it's a fungal pathogen, right? So it's dependent on the host to, which is the other thing in terms of authenticity. Like, could you call it a chaga if it didn't come off a birch tree? I don't know. I wouldn't think you should be able to, since it's always associated in nature with that. But again, I think it's interesting to talk about it for daily use too, though, because I could easily see, because of the flavor profile and the way chaga, it's a little earthier, let's say, than coffee, but like it blends really well with something like roasted chicory, dandelion, orzo, things like this, where you've already got the dandy blend tea, famous mixture with chaga and some of the 5 defenders from the immune mushroom compound, which has chaga in it. That's a great thing to have daily to support your immune system. And it's something where, it's truly a functional food, functional beverage that you can enjoy, right? Like, we take enough pills and things like this. So
truth.
But that's also individual choice as well.
It seems to be very heavily in search, where people are doing their research on it for gut health and immune health, immune support. I think those are 2 real big categories with chaga. And I know people that use it. I know people that use it for energy. I mean, I've never gotten energy from it, but they use it for energy. And, I say whatever works, so.
Well, I mean, loaded with antioxidant capacity for sure. Well researched in Soviet research for stomach cancers. Of course, we don't promote its use for that at all. And but it is, if you were to look it up on PubMed, you'd find plenty of studies indicating that use. And so that also goes along with consuming that as a beverage, and the effects on the esophageal lining and things like this when you expose those cells to an extract of chaga. And extrapolate the type of activity that may happen in humans. But yeah, there's a lot of folklore associated with it, as there are many of the mushrooms, and more and more studies are funded that are worthwhile, and we'll have more things to validate the health properties of these. But good knowing that this one has a couple thousand years at least of traditional use. And something that, like, being a person born up in the northern hemispheres and having seen these as a kid grow out of trees, but didn't have any idea what they were up in the forests of Vermont. This is, a very dear friend and mentor to me was Dr. Mary Bove. And we would trade over the years little herbal gifts, let's say, at holiday times. So as this year rolled around, it was a year where Mary has left us. Yeah. And it's the natural progression in life. But like I thought about that, and I still had a little tiny bit of the chaga that she gifted me from her wild crafted chaga up in the woods of northern New Hampshire. And that's the other thing about this type of material for me personally, is that it has a different meaning and place in my life than just as a functional canker mushroom. You know what I mean?
I do.
So I have a lot of reverence for all of the plants and fungi and the people that have been kind enough to share things like that with me over time. And I think, this is the message of plants and mushrooms and the fungi, that they're trying to tell us that it's about communication. And that's why I think it's very, we continue with our messaging of proper labeling and of fungal products. And I guess are going to continue to have to take heat for that. But it's been an issue for a long time, Jeff, that, like, not just with mushrooms, but labeling in general. And the dietary supplements are crucial to our health. And so that's why I think it needs to be done properly. So, but let's talk about, we got sidetracked on what kinds of questions you get asked about. I guess it was gut health, energy,
immune health.
Mm-hmm.
But a question comes in, people start taking more than one mushroom. Mm-hmm. And what comes up that I hear more from chaga than anything else is, does chaga play well with other mushrooms?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see the point with, or am I taking too much, or do I not need to take these others if I'm doing chaga? Sounds like it addresses all of these different ailments. And so I think that's kind of, we get into those things when we talk about broad acting activity of tonic herbs and substances that have been consumed, let's say, in like lower doses for longer periods of time to support longevity and wellness, eaten every day, turmeric, ginger, things like this, where yes, the curcuminoids and turmerones and things in turmeric have a direct effect. And yes, the anantadiol from this does have a direct effect, and it could be used in quite high doses to have another therapeutic benefit. But as most people would consume it daily as a food, it's your healthy superfood that you're taking daily. And how do people gravitate towards whatever they're taking? I don't know. They're directed by what they read and see. And for me personally, I had great herbalists that I could go to that actually use this in their practice and told me what kinds of benefits, and even things about like when not to use them. Like, hey, if someone that you're as a practitioner treating wants to, hears about this and thinks it's the greatest thing in the world for them, but it's really not because of specific factors to that individual, then you don't let them use it, or you try to guide them towards something that's a better match. That's the other thing, is that when we're speaking about these things, we're talking about them in generalities because that's for general public consumption. They're not, when you buy a product like this off the shelf, it's not in the hands of a practitioner that can direct things like dosage and what other things are you taking and what types of other conflating health problems do you have that might not make this a great idea. Something that comes up, and it's a safety question that I've had and that we answer in some documents at Nammex, is that this substance, as we talked about, also contains something called oxalates, which you probably have heard about over the course of your career. And so green leafy vegetables also contain oxalates, right? And so it is something to consider, and that would be if you had sort of like advanced kidney diseases or disease. You'd want to be very cautionary with anything that had notes on it for high oxalate content, including leafy green vegetables and things like this. So other than that, for major safety concerns or things that are kind of like FAQs about this in the herbal world, even we have done chemical analysis for the oxalate content of various species of chaga, and they're well within range of what you would find in any of the green leafy vegetables of the same amounts, and which people are like, gosh, how many more pounds of kale are we consuming now, Jeff, than we did even 5 years ago? There's kale chips and kale sauce, whatever.
It's
it's
so
every
true.
place. So
No, I think that this is a
not
really
bashing kale. Not bashing kale.
No, we're not.
Like
We're not at
kale.
all. No, but I mean, it's
just saying. Put it in perspective. Like, I think we need to. There's no question that there's a climate of hysteria in news, let's say. So it's hard not to buy into that stuff sometimes, but it's like, look, this is a substance that's been consumed as a traditional beverage and tea in I'd say probably smaller amounts than what it's kind of being used now. If anything, I think that's something that we could say of an authentic chaga is like, I don't think you probably need to use as much of it as we are, but like it's still within range for how it's being dosed in capsules and things like this. So
now, do you personally ever do the capsule form, or do you prefer to do maybe an extract and the powder in like a liquid that you can actually feel all the way down?
Yeah, well, it shows up in that 5 Defenders blend that has maitake, shiitake, reishi, chaga. Maitake, shiitake, reishi, chaga, and what's the other one that I'm spacing right now? But yeah, it shows up in the blend. So that's kind of like if I am taking it as a capsule, it's in that form. But like, for me, I try to eat mushrooms from the store, different types, cook them up, and that's kind of primarily how and then I supplement with certain things. Lately, it's been ergothioneine, like that you would have to eat quite a bit of fresh golden oyster mushroom even to get that. And like, I don't eat them every day. So, but I can take, 5 milligrams of ergothioneine in a capsule form. And that's from golden oyster mushroom too. So yeah, I think that's one that is also very, it's present in chaga, but very low. That's something that's higher, the ergothioneine, that's much higher in the fleshy species, especially the oyster mushrooms, golden oyster, porcinis. If you like porcinis, you're getting really great amounts of ergothioneine. So, but with chaga, yeah, I think so. There are these things where, you have to differentiate the use of the material, just like you would with a botanical extract. But typically the most wide use for them is as a tonic in smaller amounts daily. That's why I think if coffee is part of your ritual or tea is part of your ritual, you can even get authentic chaga powder and just brew that up in the cup. It's ground into a fine powder, so you have a little residue at the bottom, but like we know that's where the good stuff is. You just swish it down.
I've done it that way. I've done it that way.
I think the gut biome science is very interesting to look at with chaga. And I think that's true of all of the functional mushrooms. And I think that's where we'll find a lot of advancement in the science, just in terms of insoluble and soluble fiber. And we're learning more and more about why that's so important. It's one of the things that I think when I have friends or family or things that come to me and want to get on a keto-based diet with a lot of protein, I always just tell them, and then they're eliminating carbs, always just try to tell them, like, hey man, you need some forms of carbohydrates. So how's that coming into your daily consumption? And, that's easy enough to manage, but I think that's where it's the daily interactions in the gut biome, especially with these things like ergothioneine, and switching species, the lion's mane, hericinones and hericines, the way that those get uptaken and the downstream byproducts of our metabolism happen in the gut when you consume those. When you eat those mushrooms, that's where that's happening. So that's something that is true across species, is that the chitin that gives mushrooms their form and shape, like the reishi and the chitin that would be in chaga and others, that's a very hard substance, and it's an insoluble fiber. And that is what creates a lot of the secondary type byproducts in the gut that have these interactions. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that people would say, I experienced increased energy from taking this. Well, maybe in the one dose, I would be like, well, questionable if it had a lot of caffeine in the coffee that it was in, maybe, but no, but over time, yeah, that's how you would do longitudinally. I think it's got those health benefits. And also interesting that populations noted to consume this have longevity in them. But what was also true of those other life factors, like eating yogurt daily, and that's another gut microbiome thing. So
fermented foods in general.
Fermented foods.
Yeah.
So, but the chaga canker, what else can we say about it?
No, I think we've done well. I'm so happy to work with you, because not only are you guys as a company bringing out transparency and high quality products, and you guys live it every single day, and you're on top of the quality and the integrity of the products you bring to the industry, but also the education part is really, really important. So I'm always appreciative when you're here and we pick another one and do another episode. And thank you. This was great. I think this is a lot of really good information on chaga. And we're at that time when I get to ask you questions.
Yeah, well, I wanted to first just thank you for the opportunity and
my pleasure.
Having us on here, because that's, where we hope to reach people through those educational efforts. And you and I have been educators for a long time. Mm-hmm. I will say I miss that in-person educational experience on the floor doing trainings.
Love it.
Yeah, because you can often actually do a little sales training with a customer in the aisle to show people how to properly speak about a product that you want to recommend to them without crossing lines. And that's what I miss. And I think I can imagine that you do a fabulous job with that.
It's just a passion. I've been very blessed to fall into something that I was thinking would be temporary, and I'm into my late 46th year in the industry. So I guess this one's going to stick.
Yeah,
So I love it. And once again, thank you. And of course, thank you to Jeff and Sky and Adam and everybody at Nammex and Tiffany and all the wonderful crew. You guys are awesome.
Thanks.
Here's my question. Thought of the day from Bill Chioffi.
Thought of the day. I'm thinking about Chaga. I was thinking about Chaga all morning. So my thought of the day in terms of that is, I don't know. You got me on that one. I've got a lot of thoughts going on for today. Any other questions?
Sure. And you know what? You kind of alluded to the answer to this before, was taking the downtime when given to enjoy life with those that you love.
Yeah, absolutely. Very appropriate as we come into the new year, because a lot of us hopefully did get some time to do that. So absolutely. Yeah, I would say, to create energy, you need two things: rest and nutrition. So don't skip out on that part.
Agreed. 100%. All right. Second question. You leave the planet today. What do you want people to remember about you?
Wow. Another zinger, Jeff.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think that's what keeps us authentic, right?
Truth.
I don't know. There's, the band Fish?
I do.
Yeah. So they have a lyric in this song called Dirt, which is one of my favorite tunes of theirs. And it says, and if you ever think of me, kneel down and kiss the earth. So it's that's what I would say. Like, I would want people to remember a plant or a mushroom, and instead of me, but the connection that they might have had because they learned something.
I like that.
It's touching.
That's unique. I love that. Thank you. No, thank you for sharing.
You hit with just the right questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to tune in to another deep dive episode into incredible fungi, mushrooms, and fruiting bodies, and Chaga, its own category within the category. And I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Remember to listen to the podcast on any platform, but I love it if you go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, take the time to watch the interaction. I just think that after doing 42 years of radio where I never got to see my guest, this to me is so much more fun. And I think you get a much more realism to the conversation when you're able to be face to face with these amazing people that I get the pleasure to interview. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Bill, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Everyone be well. It's a new year. Remember to do something good just for you. It's important.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.